welcome everybody, and glad you are with us today. Today we're going to be doing a spotlight with our friends at Ely-Bloomensen. We're going to talk about 3 ways to get your leaders involved. So we'll do a really quick icebreaker and intro. So we'll kind of go do that. And then we're going to go into a fireside chat. We're going to learn a lot more about their organization and the cool things that they're doing. And then we'll just do a quick wrap up at the end. As Becca mentioned earlier, I will be monitoring the chat function. So if you have any questions, please post it there. I'll at different times I might drop them in, or I might wait till the very end, depending on the topic that we're going through. So yeah, just add them fast and furious into the chat window, and I'll see it for you. So you can go to the next slide, Marlisa. So we'll start off by doing an intro. How about we'll start off with Rochelle, and then we'll go to Jodi. So share a bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about your organization in a couple of slides. So go ahead, Rochelle.
Sure. Thank you, Dale. I appreciate it. And thanks for having us again today. And I'm Rochelle. I'm the Chief HR Officer here at Ely-Bloomensen Community Hospital. And I actually have been here for 23 years. We are a 21-bed critical access hospital. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. And Jodi.
Hi, I'm Jodi Martin. I'm the Marketing and Communications Team Leader here at Ely-Bloomensen Community Hospital. I've been with the organization since 2016. And like many people in a small rural critical access hospital or a small company of any kind, we wear lots of different hats and love every minute of it.
Awesome. And great to have you as well. And we'll hand off to marvelous Marlisa, who you guys know quite well. And Marlisa, if you can introduce yourself, and then I'll just do a quick couple of things. We'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. And hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Marlisa. I work as a customer success manager here at Bucculus, and I've been with the company for over 4 years now. So it's definitely been an exciting journey, and I absolutely love what I get to do and working with amazing clients such as Jodi and Rochelle, and just helping our clients get the most success out of the platform, and truly passionate about helping them build the best cultures around and just seeing how that evolves within companies. So excited to be here and join all of you, and pass it back to you, Dale.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Marlisa. So my name is Dale. I'm the VP for Customer Success and Business Services at Bucculus. I've been here for about 2 years, and before that I was in consulting. So one of my favorite things to do at Bucculus is, of course, working with the amazing team and customers. So I'm really excited to have our friends at Ely-Bloomensen here. Marlisa, if you want to go to the next slide, we've got a bit of an icebreaker here. So what I'd like everybody to do is post in the chat. Tell us about a recognition that's made a big impact on you. And so while everybody is typing into the chat window, I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle. Can you give us what, a big recognition that's made a big impact on yourself?
Are you asking as far as the one that I've received?
Yeah, you've received, or that you've seen maybe.
Probably the highlight one most recently is just this last spring. I was actually honored with an award from the Minnesota Hospital Association for change in leadership and culture. And I think given, the last several years of pandemic and everyone kind of pulling through and moving in the right directions, I think it was really rewarding. While the award was specific to me, I certainly wouldn't have been able to achieve what I've done without my team, and also the amount of amazing employees we have at the facility. So it was a pretty big honor.
Yeah, I love that one. That's awesome. And yeah, it was certainly a very tough time, and it's great to be recognized after you go through something like that. How about you, Jodi? What's a recognition that's made a big impact on yourself?
I think I have a couple. So in 2009, before I came to EBCH, I worked 24 years in the service industry. Was a manager, owner, operator of food and beverage. And I was, again, also nominated for an award and received it for the Northland News Center's Leadership Award. And I think that was so significant because it was from an employee. An employee had to nominate me as a supervisor. And so that was really special to me. But here at EBCH, I just really love the fact that we get a lot of personal recognition that's real, like handwritten cards. I feel like people know us on a real close level, and it's always very personalized. I mean, the running joke is like, I eat bottle caps once a day in my office, the candy, and
Nice.
everyone knows if they want to get something from me, they bring me bottle caps.
Yeah, exactly. I can be bribed with candy.
Yes.
I love it.
What I love about your recognition is that at the end of the day, as a leader, you're an employee first, and it's great to be recognized by people that you work with. So fantastic. I'm going to pass over to Marlisa, share a recognition that made a big impact on yourself, and then once you're done, you can go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Dale. I was thinking a lot about this, especially over my time here at Bucket List, working for a recognition and rewards platform. Of course, I've received a lot of impactful recognitions over the years, but probably the one that stands out the most for me is in my early days at Bucket List. When I first started, we incorporated a quarterly award called the Outstanding Contributor of the Quarter. We still do it to this day, and it's a peer-nominated based award. So I actually ended up winning it that first year. And, being newer to the company, still kind of trying to prove yourself and all that, you're not always sure. So it was that much more meaningful and impactful because I was nominated by my peers and won that. So that was really great. And then fun little fact that went along with that, we did a little company retreat that year as well around the same time. So part of being the winner that year is I got first pick at my room where we were staying. So a nice little added bonus. Of course, not the most important, but it definitely didn't hurt. So yeah, definitely stands out the most for me. And I'll go to the next slide here. So that brings us kind of before we dive into our fireside chat here with Jodi and Rochelle and hear more from them. We wanted to set the stage and just learn more about your journey and your recognition and reward journey and what brought you up into Bucket List. So I'll pass it over to both of you to share a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Our reward and recognition journey has been kind of a long one. It's been over multiple years, but we had a pesky pandemic thrown in there. And of course, being part of the healthcare industry, that took precedence over everything for us. So like we said in the beginning, we're from a rural critical access hospital located in the way northeastern portion of Minnesota. So we're kind of in that Arrowhead region. You can practically hit Canada with a rock from where we live. And we're staring at about a foot of snow out our window right now that came over the last 2 days. So, but Rochelle and I kind of took this on, I would say starting in about 2019, where we were really intensely looking at what we wanted to do with our reward and recognition program. We had a lot of things that we were doing, and I feel like it was kind of pieces and parts, and some of those still make up our whole program now, but we wasn't always consistent. It wasn't always like comprehensive, and I didn't know if an employee asked me like, well, what is the rewards and recognition, if I could exactly spit that out, in a comprehensive way. So we did research, and we researched, and we researched, and we did tons of research. I read the 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees by Dr. Bob Nelson, and that was really impactful for us. We got tons and tons of great ideas, and I just pulled it out of my cupboard before we came in here so I could get the author's name off of it. And I still have like 15 pages tagged with post-it notes and lots of notes and highlighting, and so we got some great ideas there as a base foundation. Rochelle had attended that year the Press Ganey conference, which was for our patient and employee satisfaction surveys, and then also the Trust Edge conference in Minnesota as well. And both of those conferences were also heavily focused on employee relationships. So we really knew that we want to do something consistent and something comprehensive, and to be able to really say, if we were interviewing someone and they asked us, what do we do about rewards and recognition? We could tell them exactly what we do for rewards and recognition. And so we researched, like I said, we asked staff, we did a lot of polling. What do you want? What do you want to see? And then we kind of thought we were really, really smart, and we created this whole like manual process. And so we had some really cool EBCH bucks printed, and kind of a paper way that employees could do like employee recognition. And We just thought like we were so far ahead of the game, like it was going to be amazing. And we were almost ready to roll it out to all staff. We'd already put out some teasers and some different things. And then Rochelle is a complete insomniac. So 3 o'clock in the morning.
Probably common to HR, I'm sure.
She was scrolling the interwebs and came in the morning. It was like, all right, I know we put a lot of time and effort into this manual process, but at 3 o'clock this morning, I was looking online and I found this, and it was a whole list of people, companies, organizations that were kind of doing an electronic process of what we thought we were so smart in putting this paper process in place for the exact same thing. And so we started researching, we did a lot of demos, we met with a lot of different companies. That is eventually how we landed on Bucket List. But more importantly, like the electronic platform kind of gave us that central anchor to having our comprehensive reward and recognition program. So we knew we were doing years of service, but this gave us a way to, you know, really make sure that that was a consistent process and we were doing it the same every time. It gave us a way to add awards. It gave us a way to recognize birthdays. And so we really streamlined our reward and recognition process into kind of 4 main buckets. And so Bucket List being one of them, Positive Thursdays being one. And that was really important for us to keep because it was
A fan favorite.
it was a fan favorite of staff, but it was also, I feel like when we always didn't necessarily have sometimes support from previous leadership, it was like our little fledgling thing that Rochelle and I just really held on to tight of wanting to be able to do for the staff. And then we have our holiday week, which happens in December. And because we are a hospital, we have our hospital week, which happens in May. And so those are kind of the 4 main buckets of our comprehensive reward and recognition program right now. And we kind of continually bring everything back when we think, oh, this would be really cool, or we want to start something new. Like, okay, how can we incorporate it into what we're already doing? You know, which of those 4 buckets might it fit in? So,
And just to touch a little bit on what Jodi had started, when I had started working with Press Ganey on a national level for employee engagement, we ended up taking our initial survey in 2018. And I will tell you the results, you know, be prepared when you're going to dive in and want to survey your staff. You got to own the results when they come in, as tough as they are. And, you know, we hit the 16th percentile for employee engagement in 2018. And it was a showstopper for sure. And so I think in combination, what Jodi had already shared, taking a lot of what the staff felt were our lowest scoring areas, and then listing out what all we had done, and then trying to figure out a way that we could compile all that and really build and enhance. So I would say, you know, you're not proud ever of being in the 16th percentile for overall employee engagement, but the beauty of that was for us to really say, let's slow down the reins here, and then where do we want to go? Who are we? What do we want from our employees' perspective, and where do we need to take our employees in order to, you know, be at that 90 or 95th percentile? So
awesome. I love that. I love that story. I've heard bits and pieces of that, and again that journey. And I think one of my favorite pieces of that is again, just the time and consideration you guys put into really listening to your employees and starting from the top down in that, but also weaving a lot of what you were already doing into Bucket List as well. And I think you can see some photos here up on the screen too. And I love these. I think these are great examples of that. Again, what you guys have shared already and how that's kind of incorporated more into Bucket List. But maybe you want to share a little bit further on some of these photos as well. I think these are all great. And again, great examples of that.
Yeah, the one on the left, I can tell you, was our first annual employee award ceremony that we actually just did this last December. So we kind of took, you know, over the entire year, we started this coming August will be 2 years since we've actually been with Bucket List. And so we kind of took all of our using it as a platform, we used all of our employee awards throughout the whole year. So one of the hardest parts, I think, is you do all these awesome things as an employer throughout the year, but you get to December and sometimes you get to the point where employees are like, well, do we do that? Or, we don't really do this. And so, the day-to-day hubbub, it was a nice way to circle back all of the achievements that everybody has done. So we kind of started from the top. A lot of our executive team members who had received awards, from outside areas, we brought those in, and then we kind of went through and Jodi printed, awesome certificates, and we re-highlighted and invited the whole staff to attend. If you were not scheduled that day, we paid you, come to work, clock in. And so it was a great way to pool everybody and get everybody back together. And then watching the peer-to-peer acknowledgement and letting their team get to see that, for a hospital, it's never a good time, right? You're functioning 24/7. But I think one of the things our staff that we got probably the most feedback on is that, we allowed people to come in and pay them to be able to see each other be rewarded, and things that people might not have seen throughout the year, but that got an opportunity to see what staff were getting the accolades for. So it was really special.
Yeah, it really was. And that middle picture is kind of when we rolled out bucket list. And I think like that is one of the things that we have thought about all the time. Is I think before we weren't really so great on how we rolled things out. And we wanted to be so cognizant of how we rolled out this reward and recognition program in a comprehensive way when we actually did launch it and start it. So we really put a lot of time and thought and energy and effort into that rollout. And I think it's served us really well, because I think we've done a much better job of rolling out new initiatives since then. We just have a really good way of doing that now. And then the other two pictures are from our hospital week last year, and then our holiday week just this December. So we always put together a committee of any employee who wants to be part of that process, and they plan a whole entire fun week's worth of activities and special gifts and prizes and games and lots of just really fun stuff. So that's what all those are.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, again, just want to reaffirm, you guys have done a great job of, like I said, already weaving things into what you were doing to bucket list. And again, I've seen when other companies do that as well. It definitely helps with a lot more success of our platform. We always like to say bucket list is that nice added bonus to help just continue to weave it into your company culture and add to all of that. So again, I think you've done a great job of that, and it's been exciting to be a part of that. So thanks for sharing that. But with that, we can jump into our fireside chat now and go into our first question here. So as we are focusing more on leadership and how to get leadership more involved within recognition, our first question here for you both is, how can we encourage leaders at all levels to be more active in providing genuine recognition to their teams?
I chuckle because that's probably been, I would imagine that many facilities experience this. Being obviously a leader myself, it was interesting when we started this process to deep dive into me, right? Because you can't expect your staff to change or to want to look to change if you aren't willing to do it yourself. And I think maybe even backing up a little more from Jodi and I have talked about this a lot is, I think the days of HR, going back 20 years, it was kind of always your structure, right? You followed the rules and, upheld all the compliance and didn't always probably get the, cheerleader, rah, rah, rah. And one of the things I'm probably the most proud of is how much we've even changed that as a starting point with our culture. And, you can do all those same things and be compliant and uphold your handbook. But I think never losing sight of the fact that without our staff, the facility isn't going to be functioning. And how do we convert compliance, but also a positive place of employment where people are, kind to one another, they feel valued, they feel appreciated, they know that they're worth of what they're coming here and doing every day. Certainly, like Jodi and I have both touched on the pandemic for healthcare. I mean, it was a big deal to everywhere. It impacted a lot of people, but the strain from a healthcare perspective, following a couple of years out of that, we went through an inability to hire and, the big retention issue that surfaced. So I think starting all the way back with what can we do from a company's perspective, HR, top down, CEO, executive, and then work our way throughout the facility was a good focal point for us. what do we expect from a leader? And then what can we help our leaders for resources, tools, continuing education? We've done a ton of them. I'm not sure how long this presentation can go, but I think the most important piece is no initiative will function if from the top down you are not on the same page. So I think us getting to that point, working with our board and our CEO and our executive team and really solidifying that has kind of blazed the trails for where we are today. Because I can, from an HR perspective, or Jodi as a leader, we can go out throughout the facility, but if they aren't seeing by action that is not happening from the top down and you aren't united in that presence, it doesn't matter what initiatives you throw into your facility, they are not going to work, and it starts to become a disappointment and really impacts your culture in a more negative manner than one would think, by morale, because it becomes a flavor of the month. And that's one of the things throughout this journey that we did not want to do.
Right. I've got a couple of, there's a couple of questions in chat, and I'm just going to weave them in kind of at the right moment here. But relating to what you just said, Rochelle, is one of the chat questions is, how do you get not just a culture of where leaders are participating, but how they are consistently participating in recognition? So that's kind of the first part. And then there was another one that's a bit related, is kind of balancing how leaders recognize so that that's not seen as kind of a favoritism type of thing. Can you maybe give,
Absolutely.
like, there's a little bit in both of those, but yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on how you guys have approached that.
Sure. So, like I said, starting back with, what are your expectations as a leader, and not by positional leader, just leadership in general. And so we defined that, and we made sure that each of our leaders were, we do monthly leadership meetings. So if you are a leader, you are required to attend. We cover always an educational topic at the start of these meetings, whether that's last week, we just happened to have ours, and we did a circle back on communication. So continuing to always provide the resources and the tools. And then again, first and foremost, making sure the expectations, I think, are understood. A large journey we went through here is I pulled our leadership team together, and we spent about 4 months walking through what our leadership performance evaluation forms were going to address. So I had our leadership team building those with myself so that they knew what was going to be expected, and then also could be a part of that process. And so we ended up actually doing quarterly performance evals. They have been so successful that we actually do them facility wide. So everyone gets a 90-day review. It has made them much more of an opportunity for face-to-face communication, more of a follow-up. What are your goals? Am I helping you? Do you need more resources? They've become actually a really good topic around here, where if a staff doesn't get one, it's like, hey, can we get my review going? Which you don't typically find. So I think having that process really, really helped us. And then now there's a level of accountability, right? So you know what's expected. And now your executive is going to also have an entire section in here. And so all of our initiatives are actually a part of the performance evaluation. So if you are not participating and you aren't by action, walking the line of a leader, that's going to be right in your own eval.
Yeah,
I
sure.
did see, I just have to piggyback on some of that someone did throw it into the chat about bucket list and the way to kind of track those things. And we do use that tracking. Having that electronic platform is really a great way. There's so many fantastic reports and dashboards that we can pull out of there, that when it is kind of that time for reviews, we have team leaders that come to us and ask us for reports as far as, how often their staff have logged in or given a recognition, or who hasn't maybe logged in. And then also we can do that for our leaders as well, as so that our executives know how many times the leaders have given recognition, and that they know that it's an expectation of ours to utilize the platforms that we've given them.
Yeah. And then also one other area that they are surveyed on is we continue to still do annual surveying. We use Press Ganey for ours, but certainly there are a ton out, and that is one way that our staff get that ability to go through, because there are direct questions related to their leadership team. And they're worded in a manner where you're going to kind of take the emotions out. It is complete objective data. Are they following initiatives? Do you feel like you've been provided trainings, orientation, education, resources, tools? So do you get your performance evaluations completed on a quarterly basis? So it's all the ways that the executives then can circle back and use that data as well.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. No, that's great. And thanks for sharing. I couldn't agree more with just, you know, you highlighted a lot of just having that communication and starting from the top down. And I know you guys have put a lot of focus on that and surveying your staff and really making sure, you know, what your employees want as well. And, but also again, making sure leadership is all on the same page, as that will trickle down as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important here to mention too, like, we have helped our leaders also to just understand like that difference between recognition and appreciation, and where, you know, we expect our leaders to appreciate our teams every day. They work very hard, and we wouldn't be where we are without our teams, but then that kind of rewards brings it to that whole like next level.
Yeah. Right. I think one of the most recent educations that we've done with our leadership team is, you know, the importance of, as Jodi just mentioned, you know, appreciating a team. You know, the rewards are great, but if your employees don't feel appreciated, which is entirely separate, and valued in what they do every day. And I think one of the biggest things we have to be careful of is a lot of people have good intent when it comes to rewarding their staff. And, you know, I'll give an example of my own team. I've got multiple of them, but one of my team members within my HR team is a complete introvert and does not want to have a center stage performance. So, you know, if I'm going to reward her, I'm not going to call her out in the middle of, you know, an entire facility conference hall and probably provide her an award because she'd probably faint. But it's one of those things that we just really encouraged our leadership team to go through and get to know your staff. And I think sometimes it's such a, I think the employees appreciate just the genuineness of the conversation. You know, sit down during one of your reviews and just say, you know, how simple could I reward you or let you know that you're appreciated? What are the top 3 things that you find to be a good value in a sense of appreciation? And it's amazing. I think a lot of leaders to start a couple of years ago thought it was always money. And, you know, money's great, sure, but it's amazing because statistically, we don't ever get that from a monetary ask. And so you can just see that if people are truly feeling valued for who they are and what they're doing, it's more than just the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it actually kind of ties in. If anyone attended the session yesterday morning, we were talking a little bit about our recognition assessment here at Bucket List. And one of the pieces of that is surveying the staff further. And a lot of the feedback that comes out of that, it's really interesting, is that like how employees want to be recognized, because you can't just automatically assume everyone wants to be recognized the same way. So I think really taking the time to find that out too is really meaningful and impactful. So that's great that you touched on that as well. Awesome. Any further comments on this question before we move into the next?
Yeah, no, I think we're ready for the next one. I've got a
Awesome.
couple of chat questions that weave into the next couple of questions.
Perfect. So yeah, next question here. So as leaders, how can we ensure that our employee appreciation efforts truly contribute to a positive and inclusive workplace culture to foster long-term engagement and motivation? Pass it over to you, Jodi and Rochelle first.
I can start with this one. I really feel like for us, especially being in healthcare and a hospital, you know, we kind of have primarily kind of a core group of, you know, 100-ish, say, employees that are here every day on a regular basis. They work the 40 hours a week, but we also have a lot of people that only work nights. We have a lot of people that are casual. We have a lot of people that are part-time, or, you know, they only come, you know, once a month and work 72 hours and then they're gone. We don't see them again for another month. So having this kind of comprehensive and a platform-driven way to appreciate employees really helps to make it more inclusive, you know, especially for our 24/7 business. And I think we are always thinking of that, even when we're planning things like the holiday week, the hospital week, you know, is how can we make it inclusive for everyone?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things through this journey that's been awesome to kind of compile or solidify is, you know, looking at 2 things, you know, an employee always feeling valued. And then one of the taglines we've been using recently too is just that you deserve the best culture. We've used that at our opening statement last week when we did our all leadership required training on communication. And that was the title of our meeting. You deserve the best culture, because it's the truth. That's what we want, right? Like I stated early on in the session, if we don't have our employees, we don't have a facility. And I think for us from a healthcare perspective, and this is probably, you know, true to any industry, I think it used to be such a focus on, for us as a healthcare example, it was, patient care and everything was focused on patient, which is huge and significant. And that's why you're in business. But if you don't have an employee engagement pool, then your appreciation or your patient engagement is going to be scored very poorly as well, right? So I think changing the focus over the last 3 years for us has been a human relations concept of how can we have the best human experience, whether it's patient, employee to patient, whether it's employee to employee. So I think that has really, really emphasized our culture and really changed kind of the morale around the facility. We expect kindness, we expect professionalism. It doesn't matter who you're speaking to, whether it's a patient or a colleague. And so that has been a huge focus. I can proudly share with you that we did receive our survey results and we're in the midst of actually going around and displaying those. But, from our 16th percentile journey back in 2018, this year we hit the 95th percentile for employee engagement. Yeah, so.
I think a couple of things also on this one too that contribute to the positive and inclusive workplace cultures. What we touched on a little bit earlier is just making really sure that we're not doing that flavor of the month where something positive that kind of could turn into something negative or be a detractor. And then also really, even when we do survey our staff and it does come back, like we want an extra vacation day or we want more money, of helping them understand the why. So it's a lot of closed loop communication of like, I'm really sorry, but it's unaffordable for us to put an extra vacation day on bucket list or give it as a reward. I mean, so it's just always making sure that we're letting people know when we can't do something, why we can't do that.
Yeah,
I've got a great kind of chat question here, and I suspect both of you will have a different lens in this. So, Rochelle, from a person who's been at Eli for a number of years, and then Jodi, who a couple of years ago came into it and saw maybe different environments before joining. But the question is, what are the special challenges in a clinical setting that you have to navigate to be able to manage an effective rewards and recognition type of program? And, essentially how do you engage the clinical staff when maybe not everybody is always sitting in front of a device or something like that in their job? So maybe, just ask both of you to kind of give you your different perspectives on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, probably to lead in, that's probably where Bucket List really kind of solidified where we're at today. I think they've been a large support system as one more resource and tool to the company to hit that 95th percentile. I can share with you that I know, probably Marlissa can get into more of the averages, but I would say we're going to be hitting our second year with Bucket List and we're still in the 80% of usage for the Bucket List program. So it wasn't a flavor of the month. It wasn't something that was implemented and has dropped off. And I think it's because we've used it as a platform. It runs similar to Facebook. It's like a social media feed that is still to this day, obviously very popular, even in outside of the professional world. So most industries that are running where you've got staff like Jodi mentioned, here once a month or on nights or on weekends, it's an ability for everybody to hear and see the same concepts at the same time. It's got the mobile app, you can do it from your phone. And so for patient care, if you're not sitting at a computer, like you're still being able to go in and you have a partner who's done a great job and you want to reward them, you're putting it on the platform and people are seeing it. That live feed is huge. You're not going back and forgetting to, oh, Jodi finished this huge project for me last week. I got to remember to send her a thank you card. I can just do it right now at the click of a button. And then like Jodi said, just, adding the platform that we've done where we're running birthdays through that. And you certainly can opt out if you're one of those employees who don't want to have those, large interactions or acknowledgements in front of the entire team. You can opt out of those. And so I think one of the biggest things is if you are monitoring the platform from a leadership perspective, so all of us as executives, we get reports from Jodi, we see what the interactions are. You can actually see them running live on the feed, but if you believe that there was going to be an area where you have a leader who is continuously recognizing one person, that will be very noticeable. It will show up on your reports. You can see it on the feed. So I think you can address it. But I would say we have not encountered that at all in this platform. I think what it's actually done is the complete opposite. I think it has forced leaders to realize, wow, like now it's live and they see other leaders doing it. You know, competition drives quality. So I think watching other leaders get involved has made people want to step up and be a stronger leader as well. And then also from the employee perspective, I mean, we have physicians that are using it. For anyone who's in healthcare, you know how difficult it is to sometimes get physicians to be able to do more because they are just so busy. But I mean, we have physicians that are acknowledging a thank you to a really tough night shift, and the nurses, and, you know, maybe the register at the front desk. And you don't typically get those in the day-to-day setting. So having our CEO, I mean, I'll tell you, we had employees that got acknowledged, you know, from the CEO directly through that feed. And so I just think it takes that appreciation to a whole nother level.
Right. Well, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Just from a timeline perspective, Marlisa, maybe we go to the next one, and then we can weave a couple of more questions in as well after.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think this next one's a good segue to what you were just mentioning, Rochelle, especially in the healthcare industry. So what's the best way to change a company culture from work, and more work? And again, before I let you answer here, yeah, like I mentioned, I work with quite a few healthcare clients, and so I couldn't agree more. You know, very hardworking industry, and can sometimes be a thankless job. So it's always exciting to see when we can incorporate something like Bucket List into that. So anyways, but yes, would love to hear more of your thoughts on this.
I can start on this one. I have a couple thoughts about that. I feel like we've done a really good job of leadership modeling the behavior, you know, and the culture that we want to see throughout our facility. We encourage them to like take that time to review scores with your whole team, to celebrate those wins, large and small. And whether that's through the platform or just with their team, like we want that to become a habit. And when you're doing it daily, and it's not like an expectation, it's just something that you're used to as part of our culture. We all do it. And then I think communication is key. Obviously, I'm the one with that in my title, so I've got to touch on that a little bit. But like, we really utilize things like our monthly employee newsletter, email somewhat to some extent, but even within the Bucket List platform, there's a way to highlight things and events that are coming up. And, you know, we really just try to keep everything as positive as we can, and especially like utilizing our newsletter, putting our scores out. I mean, we just had last month some fantastic Press Ganey patient engagement scores where some departments scored 100. I mean, which is basically unheard of. You know, they're in the 99th percentile nationwide for everyone that uses the Press Ganey platform. And, you know, we just want to make sure that we are pushing that positivity out wherever we can.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I think another piece of this that's really important, and it kind of goes back to your leadership level, is you know, and I'm going to give myself as an example. I'm just terrible with eating lunch. Okay, it's just something I just, you know, you get in that mindset and you work. But I've taken a step back from that because, you know, it's one of those, what I see is what I do, similar to when you're raising kids, right? So my own staff, I started noticing some of them were not going to lunch. And so I stopped by one day and I said, you know, how come you're not going to the lunchroom anymore? And so it's just, well, I see that you're working all the time, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting. And it was like, that was an aha moment for me, right? I went and I shut my door in my office and I'm like, this is not acceptable. So I think just realizing that even unintentionally, your staff are always watching, and, you know, they're not looking for perfection, but they're looking for ways that they're going to want you to see that they're doing a job well done. And so I think I took that as an example and I brought that back to my leadership team. And it's like, I want my staff to take vacation. We give vacation because that work-life balance is extremely important. So I am very astute at taking days off, and I make it known to my team I'm taking a vacation day. And it's interesting that you see the ripple effect, right? Because the world needs to function. And so I almost think I caught the tail end of the previous panelists before this, and I couldn't mirror it enough. I think if we make sure that we are setting up our teams, and it's not even just one you oversee, just be a guide for your facility and make sure that your staff are seeing that you want to leave a facility where I can be gone tomorrow and I'm not calling in, I'm not checking to see how things are going. I have trust and faith in the employees that are doing their job, right? And so I want to set this facility up for success. If something happens to Rochelle tomorrow, I want to be the leader that is known that the department can still function. And so I think sometimes back in the day, it used to be, let's keep all this knowledge isolation and make sure that this isn't about basing your job. It's being a good leader means you're letting everybody know what could be done to keep the facility functioning. And if you keep that at the mindset, I think it adds so much trust in the organization. And it's amazing the productivity you get out of that.
Yeah, for sure. Marlisa, maybe if we go to the next slide, and then what do is I would love for both of you to kind of give your last few thoughts. And one of the things that was in the chat earlier is like, talk a little bit of, what I took away from this was how you make things fun. And so I think that's something that I'd love for you guys to just kind of share how you make it fun, and how you obviously have done some amazing things. I bet you didn't start off by going, hey, we're going to go from, what was it, 16% to 95%. That wasn't the goal, but you still looked at things and said, hey, we can be better, and then you incrementally improve. So I love that, like having a metric and having a goal there. So I'll pass it over to you, Jodi, if you want to take the first shot at kind of what are your last few thoughts and things that you want everybody to take away, and then we'll go to Rochelle after, and then Marlisa.
Yeah, I think just touching on how do we make things fun. I think it's not only just making things fun, but I feel like we try to make things really special. I think when we bring these teams together to do things like planning hospital week or holiday week, or even a positive Thursday, like I really encourage the teams as I'm trying to lead them is to like, how can we make, that person who does only come here once a month or once a quarter, or is here only every night, like, how do we make them feel as special as the person who's here every day and would maybe get more advantage of some of the things that we're doing? And so I think it goes above and beyond fun into just really making the staff feel appreciated and feel special.
Awesome. Fun with purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Rochelle, any last few thoughts that you want as takeaways for everybody?
No, I would just say, be meaningful with your process. Start from the top down. I think if you don't have an expectation list that you're going to accomplish this overnight, I think you are going to have so much more success. I think making sure that you get that involvement of your team. Again, it's not that you're taking in feedback and can only do what employees are asking, but when we can't do something for whatever reason, it's word choice, right? I don't go and say, no, we can't do that. It's here, I loved your suggestion, and these are the reasons why we can't roll this out right now. Closing that loop of communication, and then continuing to survey. Continue to see what's working, and it's okay if things aren't and you want to change or mix it up down the road. But I think being meaningful with your leadership team and their expectations. I think at the end of the day, you just sometimes you have to realize that, there's a lot of seats on the bus. And not everyone is meant to be either on a seat or maybe in that leadership seat. And when you recognize that, provide your resources, your tools, your continuing expectations. But at some point, if this isn't working, you need to make different decisions, and people can't be afraid to do that because it will unravel everything you are doing.
For sure. That's awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Marlisa, do you have any last few thoughts before we bring Becca back on?
Yeah, I feel like I could keep talking about this for hours with you guys. It's been such a joy and a treat, and obviously love getting to work with you on this. But yeah, I think a lot of what you said already, but again, just the care and attention that's gone into your recognition and rewards journey, and truly treating employees as people, and kind of having that open communication all around. And as we've mentioned over again, just starting from the top down. So again, really enjoyed this conversation. So thanks.
Yeah, for sure. It's you don't create an effective recognition program by accident. It takes care and attention and a strategy, and those are all really important things. And as Marlisa was sharing, we've got a recognition program assessment for teams that aren't really kind of grounded on their strategy and trying to figure out how to get things there. And but the great thing about the Ely story is that you had a goal, and you were able to change how the employees were kind of looking at how engagement is done, or how your recognition program impacts them on a daily basis. And that's just fantastic. So I really love it, and I really appreciate both of you joining us today.